And I said, you're going to need a 4-pound average. You're going to need 16 pounds, you know, if you're going to do well. You're going to have that. Yeah, you had to have that. And it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. You needed to have 5s and 6s. You needed to be north of 20 pounds, 20 to 25, 26 pounds before. I had no idea. You know, I hadn't watched the MLF tournament up there. I hadn't seen any recent footage and didn't talk to anybody. And fished a lot of history, which was horrible. You know, and yeah, and that's what I caught a couple decent fish in practice. But, you know, I didn't understand the wave, how they spawned from up near Messina, Waddington, you know, up, you know, that far downriver, and they moved towards the lake. And just recently, NPFL was just there last week. Now we're talking mid-July now. This is mid-July, and they're catching 5 and 6 pound smallies on beds in the lake. Okay, just crazy. I know Van Dam did really well there. You know, back before things turned out the way they are now with the gobies and zebra mussels. But yeah, just a crazy good fishery. If you've never been, you need to go. And you can't go wrong. June 15th is when bass season opens in New York. So you can go then, and you'll, from then until now, I mean, you can't beat it. Lake Casitas, never been there. California. Orange Lake in Florida. I think I might have put my boat in there once prior to like the first tournament, you know, and it being the tournament being off limits. So I think I might have broke my boat in there before. I'm not positive. I do remember they were spawning where I did that. So I'd have to look at a map and see in relation where it is to like Okeechobee or something like that. Next lake on the list, this was their top 10 of the 100, Santee Cooper. One of my all-time favorite lakes. I got so much history there, so many good memories. This was the first lake that I cashed a professional check, okay, professional tournament. It was the 4th tournament I'd ever fished professionally, because I fished Hartwell in the fall in '96, and then we did the 4 tournaments for '97. This would have been the 3rd tournament on the schedule, like February of, probably January, February, I believe it was. I have the plaque. Anyway, finished like 32nd. Really tough bite. I mean, the weather was horrible. One day it blew so bad, I mean, it was like you're looking like you're on Lake Erie, you know, with trees sticking up. And if you're crossing the lake at all, you have to stay in the boat lanes, and you have to, or else you're gonna just tear your low unit off, tear your boat up. So you can't really navigate those waves the way you want to, you know, because based on staying in that boat lane. But anyway, that particular tournament, you know, the rare occurrence, Kevin did not catch a fish, and I only caught like 1 or 2 fish the first day, 1 or 2 fish the second day. Had 4, I think, the 3rd day. The full field fished all 3 days. But anyway, way up the river, flipping a black and blue jig. And it was just the beginning of a really good relationship with that lake. Met some phenomenal people down there. Inky Davis let me keep my boat there when I went down and pre-practiced. And I still keep in touch with him to this day. Inky Davis, if you look him up, just an infamous guide on the lake for years and years and years. Bright yellow boat he always had. So yeah, it was great. I went back there again for a Eastern Everstart. When Everstart first, when the FLW started that series, one of the lakes on the schedule was Santee Cooper, and I did well there too, in the top 4 after the first day, and pulled out a top 10 there. So it had a little bit of grass. Actually, the grass was already done when I was there. There was a little bit here and there, but it was basically cypress trees, brush piles, and ditches and things like that. But just phenomenal. It's absolutely gorgeous lake, beautiful. And it's some of the coolest stuff you would never even know existed until you went there. But I know I'm already getting real long-winded. maybe I'll do half and then, the other half. But Mille Lacs Lake, Minnesota, never fished that. Lake Erie, New York, yes, fished there many times. Love the lake, absolutely love it. And, especially when the gobies and the zebra mussels started to have an impact on it. Up until last year, when I won the regional qualifier on Champlain, this was my highest professional finish. So 6th place in a Bassmaster Open up on Erie. I know that Jordan Paulo, Frank Scalish, and I were all fishing for Pradco, Yum, Bomber, Booyah, that brands. We all finished in the top. We were in the top 8. Okay, Scalish won. I was 6th. Jordan was 8th, and we have a picture that they took of us. That was it's just crazy how big the water gets there. And, I was definitely on the fish to win. And day 1 had a bag. And my day 1 co-angler had a really good bag. And actually 2 of my 3 co-anglers were 1 and 2. So out of the 3 co-anglers I had, one of them was first, won the tournament. The other one was second in the tournament. And I was right there the whole time. But drifting, this was, again, prior to the trolling motor technology we have now, electronics we have now, you could not hold on these fish. I mean, no matter what. It was just, we're talking 6-foot waves and very difficult to hold on the areas that you wanted to fish. Second day, it laid down flat. And I'll never forget, my co-angler at the time, wasn't doing very well, and it was flat calm. They still bit really good. What had 19 pounds or something like that. He was still having a little bit of trouble. He saw like a big smallie, 4 or 5 pounder, floating dead. And it was funny at the time because he made the comment. He goes, yeah, I ought to throw over there and snag it and take the dead fish penalty, but it would probably get off on the way back to the boat, right? So I laughed and I said, well, yeah. But first of all, I'm pretty sure that that's not allowed. Okay, so, but yeah, Lake Erie's been great over the years. Love it. Lake St. Clair, fished that many times for a bass, for FLW, and FLW story. I knew Tommy Martin, from Bassmaster, as we know now. He was with FLW, okay? He was a commentator for FLW. He had never smallmouth fished with a tube, so I went out with him. He was my partner for the day. So Tommy Sanders and I, minus Tommy Martin, Tommy Sanders and I spent the day together in the boat. We had a great day. We still keep in touch to this day. And I showed him how to fish a tube, and we caught him really good on Lake St. Clair. So that was a pretty cool memory of Lake St. Clair. But I like it. It's a massive lake, but it's not as big as Erie. Okay, so it's a little bit easier getting to it. If you don't launch in it, coming up the Detroit River from Erie can be challenging because of all the boat wakes. But that's another story. So now they switched to like a central division, and I don't know how much time we're into right now, but I'll just move along. So now the print gets real small, so I got to do the readers. Sam Rayburn, yep, fished that many times, phenomenal lake. It's not far from Skeeter, so that made it convenient. Best story about Sam Rayburn is, for me, is again fishing it open there. I drew Jay Ellis, and again, one of the best days on the water I have ever had, one of the most amazing days on the water I've ever had with anybody. Couple things, out of respect for him, everything that he had done to that point, It was boater on boat. It was invitational at that point still. It wasn't an open, it was invitational. So, I could have taken my boat, he could have come with me, but out of respect for him, it's like Andy was doing a little bit better in the tournament. So he asked me where I was fishing, I told him, and he's from there. Okay, so not originally, but he settled there when he came east, from the West Coast to Texas. He lived right in that area, guided in that area, fished that lake a lot. So it was like, out of respect for him, we'll go in your boat. We were both ski to Yamaha as well. So had a great day with him, and I'll try to summarize it real quick. So he asked me where I was fishing. He knew where I was fishing. But he said, all right, I got this other deal. In Texas, it floods. And typically that lake floods, and what you do is the fish go to the bank. You got to get to the bank. You got to get to soil. Okay, because there's a ton of flooded timber and trees and brush that you would think they would be in, but basically they follow the water up. Okay, so with him, we go way up the lake, turns into this creek arm, goes and goes and goes and goes, and then he just turns dead left and he runs right into the woods. Like, there's no discernible cut or opening, just through the woods. Come off pad, but now we're like a heavy idle. Bending trees out of the way, driving over brush. There was an old creek channel there that made its way up into a farmer's field, and he was catching them. This whole field was flooded. You could see a gate on the left, a gate on the right, the farmers, barns and houses up on top of the meadow there, and there was a gravel road between the two gates. So